What's happening? What's happening? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Contract class, love those.
Oh, good. So you guys have a treat for you because Mr. Joe Daner is one of the agents who does a ton of business and is active in this market. So he's on the buy side and the sell side of a lot of these opportunities to learn. So we're going to hear from someone who's actually doing it as well. I myself also have a lot of different people that are buying and selling. So, we're actually active in the market. We're seeing the things that are happening. We're fighting with the other side. We're working with the other side. We're doing everything we can. So we're going to talk about navigating and negotiating multiple offers and ways that you can put your buyer and your seller to a benefit and things you should and should not do. So I'm going to jump in and share the screen if that's all right with you, Joe. Do you got anything you want?
Well, while you're doing that, speaking of the wild market, so I listed a property yesterday at 1 o'clock and I have 35 offers, 35 showings scheduled and 5 offers in already. And that's since 1 o'clock yesterday.
1 o'clock yesterday. Holy heck, dude. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
All right. So that's what we're talking about today. So the first thing we want to talk about is, why is this happening? I mean, you've heard us mention this in nearly every single meeting we talk about, and the introductions to this class as well. So why we have this, there's low inventory. The supply and demand is just dictating that there are not enough homes for the amount of buyers that are shopping here. We also see low interest rates. You have to see what our market has that no other market has. When you start looking at and breaking down everything that the Tampa Bay market has, the economic table that we have here, we have so many legs to the economic table that if any one of them falls, there's still a lot more of them to hold up the economy that's here. So we have a lot of people that see that from all across the country and other areas of Florida. They're saying Tampa Bay is a great area. We have institutional investors that see Tampa Bay as the big place to be, and they're buying as many homes as they can here. And it's just creating a lot of demand in our area. Joe, can you select the green to get the background to show on your green screen?
I did that. It's still not working. I had it working before we came on, and then when you switched me in,
you may have to do the same thing again. When you rejoined, it may have reset that setting on your Zoom. So if you can go to the video in the bottom, click on that down arrow and try and do that one more time. Let's see if it'll fix it.
I have it checked, so I don't know. Hold on. Let's see. There we go.
There you go. Hey, there you go.
There we go.
All right, awesome.
It dropped the background for some reason.
Okay. So that's what's going on. I mean, then also you start looking at what happened during COVID. A lot of builders slowed down. So there was a lot of builders, a lot of suppliers, everybody kind of slowed down a little bit for about 60 days because they didn't know what was going to happen. And during that time frame, people still bought, and then everybody started flooding different markets. So they're behind. We don't have enough homes. There's a little scarcity in a lot of areas. There's people buying homes everywhere. It's just an unbelievable time. And the buyers are getting the lowest interest rates that they've pretty much ever got. I mean, a difference of 1% is a difference of $200 to $300 a month on our average home. So when you look at that, that's a huge difference for them.
And just the economy changing where people are now working from home and their employer doesn't care where they work. So they can move from a high tax state to Florida, get a pay increase of 6 to 10%, and they don't need a snowblower. Yep. So, it is. I mean, why wouldn't anybody do that? So,
yeah. So some things that you want to do before you either put the property on the market or go out with your buyer is expectations are key. Setting the right expectations with your buyers and with your sellers is absolutely key right now. So letting sellers know what to expect, how many showings, how much interest you can anticipate, or what the market has been dictating and what probably will happen here, giving them that input, letting them know that we need to put our best foot forward because we need to make buyers feel confident paying 20, 30 grand over because it might happen. Buyers, letting them know our market is showing. I'll pull up the last few listings and show them this home was listed for X and it sold 30 grand more than that. and show them all of the homes that have sold like that in their area. It's a lot easier to tell them that up front than it is when you're sitting down to write an offer and you find out that they're the old school mentality. I offer 10% less and negotiate somewhere in between. Not everybody's heard about what's happening all day long here.
No, well, then that's one reason, big reason to tune into the morning huddles, because Craig goes through that stuff and shares the stories. I mean, we had Jessica with 72 showings and 52 offers on our listing last week. So, when I sat down with my sellers last week, I said, all right, let me explain what you're going to do. You're going to vacate the house between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. because we're going to have people coming in every 15 minutes here looking at the house. And they thought they were kidding me until last night when they didn't get home till 7 o'clock and people were still in the house. And, finally they go, oh my God, because they're getting a text message every time there's a confirmation of a showing. So their phone is blowing up like mine is. So that is a huge thing to set that expectation, because if you didn't set that, you would have a seller so upset with you that, that they didn't realize they were going to have to get out of the house all day.
Yeah, absolutely. So setting expectations is key. And then when we're talking about, the buyer side, so we're going to start with that, just navigating through the buyer side and, with competing offers and multiple offers. So just different key points to understand, to follow through with, to try and make sure that you stay on top of. Number one, I think this is one of the most important things when you're going to be working with a buyer and they're writing an offers. Call the listing agent. You've heard us mention multiple times. We are in the people and communications business. We are not in the real estate business. We're in people and communications, and we just happen to sell houses. It's absolutely imperative that you can build the greatest rapport. If we're at the greatest rapport, if I don't talk to that listing agent, guess what I am? Just another piece of paper, just another email with an offer. That's all that I am. I need to find a way to stand out with them. And the best way I can stand out with them is to be like them, because people like people who are like themselves. So if I can connect with them, build rapport with them, remind them that I am like they are, and I'm somebody they could like, should like, would want to work with. And I know what I'm doing because I crafted the perfect offer exactly like what they asked for, gave them everything they wanted. I stand a better chance of getting our buyer's offer accepted.
Chris, have you ever gotten an offer from another agent because you did a deal with them before and they liked you?
Absolutely.
Yep. They get a bunch of people offers and they're all pretty close together, and they go, hey, I worked with Chris before. He was great to work with. I didn't have any problems. We cleared a close. I didn't have to babysit him. Let's pick him.
Yep. Get them talking too. Ask some questions. The more questions that you can ask, the more they're going to start talking. And every little thing they say is something that can set your buyer apart. Like, this isn't so prevalent, but I had a buyer wanting to buy a home. I called the listing agent and said, hey, I understand you have a pool home and I'm sure you're pretty busy with showings. He goes, yeah, it's been pretty crazy. I said, I've got a buyer who's a conventional approved and does not need closing costs. And he went, he doesn't need closing costs. If you don't need closing costs, get me an offer. We were planning on offering over asking price for the home to make sure we got it. We ended up offering just at asking price and got the offer accepted because every other offer they had was asking for closing costs. So just the simple fact of having conversations made them open up and made them say something that gave me the ammunition that I needed to be able to get my buyer a better deal on the home when we would have paid $7,000 more for it.
Hey, the good agents right now, when they're making appointments and they're asking me questions, guess what they're asking me? What's the date the seller wants to close? Is there a date? Is there anything that they really need? And this is where, you need to be talking to your seller. Do you need to be in the house a little after closing to pack
Bingo.
up? All right. Do you need a rent back? Is it free? How long do you need? Your kids are in school and they don't get out till May 30th. So when do you want to pack up and close? So finding the most you can about your seller will help you on the buy, when a buyer agent's calling you, that you can have the perfect offer. Because guess what? If you don't have to negotiate a lot of terms when you get an offer and the offer comes through and it's executable, What an easy day that is.
Yeah.
You gave me the answers to the test, right?
Yeah, you don't always have in Realtor Remarks, or if you don't call and ask, how do you know that the seller might need 90 days because that's when their new home is going to be completed? And if you try, let's do a quick close, we'll give them exactly, I think they want a quick close probably. They just want to get out of here and be done with. No, they need 90 days, but you didn't call and find out. Lauren, you made a good point. They're called cooperating agents. We're called cooperating agents. The more we cooperate, the better it's going to be for all the parties involved. So,
and some agents don't get that, but that really, they are the cooperating agent on the transaction.
Yeah, and something right now that a lot of sellers are concerned with. I can't find another home. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. So what if your buyer was able to say, hey, I'll give them as long as they need to find another home, as long as we close within 4 months, as long as we close within 3 months, or as long as they're willing to accept an offer like this, because I'll have to extend my rate lock for this long if I don't get it, but I'm willing to give you whatever it takes. What if you're able to work those things out? But you don't know unless you ask. You don't know unless you communicate.
Yep. Know your buyer's lender. Oh my goodness. Close dates. Can your lender close in 30 days? Can your lender, what do they need 45? I mean, you should be having that conversation long before you're actually making an offer. Ask your buyer for their lender's information and have a conversation with them, and make sure that they don't need closing cost help and stuff like that, because sometimes first-time home buyers don't really understand the questions you're asking and they just agree, or, so you really sometimes have to go 3 questions deep. Yep. So they understand what closing costs are. They don't, oh, I have a VA loan, I don't have to pay anything. No, you have closing costs. So, that's really, really important.
Also, are they pre-approved or are they pre-qualified?
Yeah.
Is there a difference?
There's a big difference, especially if you have a good listing agent on the other side who, when they get the offer, picks up the phone and says, hey, Chris, tell me about Joe Diener. Have you pulled his credit? Have you gotten his tax returns? And what are you good? Have you gone to underwriting with it? So that's all really important, because when I'm a listing agent, I'm calling because I'm asking the lender question. I don't execute until I talk to the lender. Yep. I just don't. And I'm saying, can you close in 30 days? Because that's what your contract, the contract says. Oh no, we need 45. Now it draws a red flag to me that buyer agent has never talked to that lender.
There's one specific lender that I can think of that always needs 45 days to close. And I received an offer for a listing that said they would close in 25, and it was using that lender. And when I called the buyer's agent and asked, have you verified? Because they typically can only close in 45 days. I've never had them agree that they can do it sooner. They try, and sometimes they do, but it's only a few days. The buyer's agent said no, because they had not communicated. They had no idea. They wrote a contract that said they were going to do that. So just be aware of those things. Call the lender, speak to the lender, pre-qualified or pre-approved. Have you verified everything like Joe said? Or did you just ask them questions and they said, I make this much, I have this much money in the bank, and here's my social security number, and you could see my credit score is good. Hey, based on what you told me, you're qualified to buy this home. But once I've verified it, and you gave me tax records, and you gave me income statements, and you gave me all that, now I'm going to approve you. You are pre-approved for this loan. One step further is we are fully underwritten. We took everything we have, gave it to the underwriter. They gave us an approval. All we need is a contract to get final. And that's something that you may want to try and push for in this market. It's going to make you stand out. That's going to be a huge difference. So communication with your lender is key.
Right. There's so many little things that you have to remember doing all this, and hopefully some people are taking some notes and making little check boxes as you go along. But it's so important. Your seller or buyer, whoever you're representing, they've hired you as a professional, and you're supposed to know the processes, right? That's what you're hired to know, the processes of what's going on. And one of those key is this the lender part, because that will make or break a deal. If you accept an offer 30 days and 2 days later you get a call going, we need 45. Well, what if you had 2 other offers that were fairly close but could have done 30? All right. So it is important to make that phone call. And you know what? It's really, you have the power. You can call that buyer agent and say, I would really love to execute this contract, but I need to talk to your lender first. Can you have him call me? That usually gets, and here's the funny part, Chris. Today, there's so many big box lenders that you go in and say, I make this much and this is much, and all of a sudden it produces a pre-approval letter and no one's ever talked to you on the phone.
Yep, it's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Now, also about their approval. So I keep seeing this, that, well, if it doesn't appraise, I'm willing to pay more. Okay, well, I need to verify that. So has your lender verified that you have the funds to do that? No, it's good. I've got the money. Well, that doesn't matter to me. If you have the money and you say you have the money, that's fine. But the money that you have may not be a sourceable, may not be a verifiable source of income and money that the lender will give you credit for. I need to make sure that that money has been seasoned in an account and is sourceable by the lender and that you'll be able to use it. So the lender has to verify that you're able to do a 20% down loan, but if it doesn't appraise, you'll be able to come up with 25% if you need it. The lender has to be able to verify that. So we need to make sure that that's clear as well. That's happening a lot right now. And we need to make sure that the lender says, yes, the funds are there.
And speaking of that, I got a pre-approval letter for a client 2 weeks ago. And in the pre-approval letter, it says they needed closing cost help. All right. They needed, and so I called the lender and I said, are you sure they need closing cost help? Because that's going to be a deal kicker, a quitter for anything right now. Right. And he goes, oh no, we just didn't go through and verify assets. So when we don't verify assets, we just say they need closing cost. So basically, so I called the buyer and I'm like, do you have 3% for closing costs? They're going, yeah. I said, okay, I want you to send your bank statements to your lender because you're not even going to be in the ball game asking for 6%. I mean, I'm not even going to put you in my car. Okay. Okay. That's not going to happen. So that's why it's important to call that loan officer, because now guess what? They review their assets and they could take that off their pre-approval. And now I have a chance to getting them a house.
See, now, once we get to the point and get all this out of the way, now you can write offers. And when we're writing offers, what we're seeing now is that homes are going for above list price. Yeah. And how many buyers still have that mentality that I don't pay more for anything. I'm never going to pay more than the home appraises for. I won't do this. I won't do that. And we have to start talking to them in terms of payment over price. And now more than ever, payment over price is a huge discussion to have, because are you willing to pay, or a buyer's going to say, I'm not going to pay $10,000 more for that home. I said, you won't pay $10,000 more? Well, here's the thing. You're not paying $10,000 more for the home. And follow me on this. For every $50 a month in your mortgage, that equals approximately $10,000. So are you telling me you're not willing to pay $50 more a month to get this home? Because that's realistically what you're paying. $50 more a month, not 10 grand. It's 10 grand more if you went through and paid every single payment on this. But the reality is you're going to be in this home, or the average person is in a home for 5 to 7 years. So if you pay $50 more a month for the year, that's $600. And if you move in 5 years, you really only paid $3,000 more for the home because you paid $50 more a month to make sure you got this home. Would you be pissed off, upset, aggravated, or mad with me if I wasn't able to get you this home because you weren't willing to pay $50 more per month for this home? It's a good conversation to have. And if you look in the next line, this Joe's statement to everybody, it says, look, a $201,000 mortgage is only $4.22 more than a $200,000 mortgage. So don't tell me you don't want to pay $1,000 more, because it's $4 a month.
So I had a client one time, buyer and seller, and they were $1,000 apart. And I said to the buyer, I said, so you understand, $1,000 to the seller is $1,000. $1,000 to you is a Big Mac. So are you losing this house for a Big Mac, or, you know, and by the way, that $4.22 will take you 15 years to pay that back.
Yep.
on that loan, and you're only going to be in the house for 4 or 5 years. So
Yeah.
let's
they're key differentiation points. And what it is changing the basis point. The same way when someone objects to commission, you change the basis point. Is it about the commission you're paying me, or is it about how much money I can put in your pocket? We'll talk about this in the next slide more. And you change the basis point on the buyer. Is it about what you're paying for the home, or is it about how much you're paying per month for the home? Because the reality is, if you pay $300,000 for this home now at, let's just say 3.2, or example, last year when I bought a home, the interest rates were 3.25%, about a little more than a year ago. So, and I paid what I paid for my home at 3.25% interest. If I waited and bought the same home a year later, the interest rates were 2.6, and it saved me $280 a month. So when you're talking to a buyer and saying, look, you're telling me you're waiting for the prices to go down, but if the prices go down, what's going to happen is interest rates are going to go up. Mm-hmm. If interest rates go up 1%, that's almost about $300 a month for what you're looking at. And that $300 a month means prices would have to drop by $60,000 for your monthly payment to be the same. So are you going to wait for prices to drop $60,000 at a 3.6, or do you want to buy it right now at that payment with a 2.6 interest? You're just going to pay 300 grand. So the difference between a 3.6 at 240 and a 2.6 at 300, their payment's the same. So having those discussions with them and getting to understand that it's about payment, not price right now, because the money is nearly free. That's a huge conversation to have.
Yep.
So terms of the offer, talk a little bit about terms of the offer, that when you're writing offers, some of these terms that you're using and why you're using them.
Escalation clause. We developed that. Well, we used it a lot in Maryland when I lived in Maryland in 04 and 05. And when I got down here, I brought it with me and we started using it down here to get us, And this is something, this is when you're working with a buyer, this is something you have to discuss today. We live in America and we all think that the price on the sticker is what we're going to pay, except when we're buying cars and houses, right? And then we think it's overpriced. We want it for a little less. In this market, the price on the sticker for a house is the starting point. And, as I explained to my seller the other night when we were establishing the price, I said, we're going to put it here. And the market, the buyers are going to determine the price of the house, because they always determine the price of the house. The seller doesn't, the buyer does. The buyer says, this is what I'm willing to pay for those plaster walls and what you did in your house. So the escalation clause is just merely a means to get a house to, we don't know what offers are when multiple offers, right? We don't know what other offers are coming in. So it basically says this is the net. And we're going to offer $1,000 or $500 over your best net offer, and we're willing, to.
Well, it's a good clause to use.
We're going to put it in an auction, right? So.
Yeah, basically, when you have a buyer who's basically saying, "Hey, I still want you to get me a deal." Like, well, here's what I can do for you. Like, it's listed at 300 and we don't know what it's going to go for. You can offer them 300 and just put in that you'll escalate up to X, say 325, and you'll beat the next highest offer by $1,000 or $2,000. Bona fide verifiable offers. You have to prove to me you had that better offer and I'll beat it by 1,000. If nobody offers better, you're paying 300 for it. But if somebody offers better, you really want this home, you'll beat that offer by $1,000 or $2,000. Just know that somebody might be offering more than you. This escalation clause puts them in a position where they might be able to pay as little as possible, not quite their max, if nobody else was offering that high. So it's a tool that you can use to discuss with the buyers that way. The other terms of your offer, when you're putting it in there, escrow is so important. I know Kat and Craig hammered on that pretty hard. So additional escrows and initial and additional. Make sure you're giving both initial and additional escrows.
Okay, so Chris, I want to put some. So one of the offers that came in for one of my houses was the house that's on the market right now. had, it's a house that's set 538. So it came in, I won't talk about the price, but it had $1,000 escrow on a 538,000, no additional escrow. All right. And I really want to pick up the phone and have a conversation with
Well,
the
what did it make you think? So when you saw 1,000 on 500, what was your thought?
well, first of all, I have an agent on the other side who doesn't know how to talk to the buyer and say, in customary is 1% of the value of the house, customary, and in this market, as Jeff Beggins would say, put our best offer forward, and a best offer would be, all right, it's an 80-20 loan. I'm going to put a decent escrow and maybe an additional deposit of some kind of money after inspection to make it a great offer.
Sure.
But when I see something with $1,000, what seller is going to take their house off the market for $1,000 deposit?
What you're showing the seller and the listing agent is, look, we're serious. I'm willing to put more skin in the game because I'm going to give you at least 1 or 2% or more right up front. All right. I'm going to give you that up front and show you that I'm serious like everybody else, but I'll do you one better. Once you prove to me your house is in good condition and I'm moving forward with it, if you even have an inspection contingency, once you prove that to me, I'm going to prove to you that I'm a verifiable buyer. I'm going to give you another 10 grand. I'm going to have 20, 30, 40 grand. I'm going to have every dollar that I have to bring to closing in escrow, if that means it gets me the home. But you're showing them you're serious. Once you prove to me, I'm going to prove to you that I'm serious and my financing is golden because I'm not worried about losing this money because I'm good. Those are the things that you're trying to prove to them. Closing date, we talked about that, verifying the closing date, making sure that everybody is on point and the lender knows what the closing date, when the lender can close, and when the buyer or when the seller can close as well. Inspection periods right now, does a buyer really need more than 5 days to do an inspection?
No. Yeah. I certainly, if I was writing the offer, I would pick up the phone to my inspector and say, hey, if I get an offer tonight, can you inspect it on Thursday or Friday or whatever the case
Exactly.
be. All right. So,
exactly.
This market, Chris, requires us to do a little more forward planning. All right. As we're doing this, but, another thing came up the other day, and this is a good time to talk about it, is, there's some people that are waiving inspections. All right. 0 days inspections.
Yep.
And that might be a problem because the insurance companies now are requiring a home inspection, a copy of the home inspection on any house that's 10 years or older. And not everyone, but they are. And I just ran into it where I had to wait to get the inspection because it was being rehabbed and so forth. And the underwriting would not approve the loan until they had that inspection. So we got to be really careful. We may have to do inspection for informational purposes only for insurance, because otherwise you could find yourself 2 weeks before closing and all of a sudden they're getting insurance and they can't get it because they don't have a home inspection.
Next, loan approval timeframes, like we talked about in the last class, making sure that your loan approval and your closing date line up. Don't put a 30-day loan approval on a 30-day closing, because if you have a good listing agent on the other side, they're going to say, we know you're probably going to need the loan approval at least 3 days prior to the closing to review your CD. So no, we're not doing that. You're not going to be able to cancel this contract the day of closing. Find out how soon the lender can provide loan approval. Give the seller at least 5 days, but typically 5 to 10 days where we have loan approval, and then we go to close so that they're comfortable and confident moving out. Make sure all of the dates line up. Make sure that you are diligent, having a critical date timeline, doing that, giving it to the buyer, giving it to the other agent on the other side. If you do these things and take control, it's going to set a better tone for everybody, and everybody's going to have a better experience, not just a transaction. Right. As is a residential contract, with or without repair limits. Best thing to do with this, call the agent. Well, the seller's requesting this. BS, the seller probably doesn't know the difference. You're just asking for it. But whatever they're asking for as a buyer's agent now, give it to them. Or if you can prove to them why a different contract would be better. Like if you can prove to them, look, and as is contract, there's tons of buyers writing contracts on 4 or 5 different homes at a time. You're going to accept an as is contract, and that buyer is going to cancel potentially. My buyer can't. I want your seller to say they'll do $500 in repairs, $1,000 in repairs. We'll give you the 20 grand over asking. We cannot cancel the contract unless your seller is not willing to do all of the repairs that come up. It's something that's worth talking about. When you're putting all this together also, whether it's the as is or residential, go to the listing, grab all of the addenda, grab all of the attachments, have your pre-approval, present a complete executable offer. You don't want to present an incomplete offer. If they cannot execute your offer on the spot, I might be hesitant to accept it because there's others that are going to be just as good that might be complete. So do everything you can to put a complete offer, and be sure to look at the Realtor Remarks or any attachments that talk about included and excluded items. If the seller says we're not including this, and this, and the listing agent said we've got multiple offers, your buyer probably doesn't want to ask for those items because it's going to be it might be a deal breaker for the seller. They really wanted that sentimental chandelier and the other person wrote it in as not included. You said you wanted it. That could be a deal breaker. So paying attention to those things are going to make sure that you get the best opportunity for your buyer.
I see so many agents put in Realtor Remarks, this is not included, this is excluded. I always have my sellers write it in the actual disclosures, the property disclosures. I have them write it in at an empty spot. The chandelier, grandma's chandelier in the dining room does not convey. That way I can make sure that the buyers have actually seen that, because the buyers never see the Realtor Remarks.
No.
And if you don't have an agent who actually reads it, and you have to be really good also when you get a contract and make sure that it's in the excluded personal items and you have notes of that, what's excluded when you're executing an offer, or you could be replacing grandma's chandelier or something like that. So
absolutely. So right now, this is just for our specific market because of what's happening. We're talking about waiving appraisal contingencies or offering to pay more, or offering to pay a certain amount over the appraisal. So we have verbiage in dot loop for you. It's under our clauses section, and it says buyer agrees to pay X amount of dollars over the appraised value, not to exceed the contract price, or this contract is not contingent upon an appraisal. Buyer agrees to pay the contract price regardless of the outcome of the appraisal. Now, if you're a listing agent, make sure that the approval states that they have that. Call the agent or call the lender and talk to them. Does the buyer have additional funds if this appraises along what we think it might appraise for? Have those conversations up front. Those are discussions to have, but those are things that we're having buyers do to get these offers accepted. And then, like we mentioned in the last class, offering to pay for the title policy. So a title policy, it's $5.75 per $1,000 plus $275. So, I mean, it's anywhere between, on a median home price, it's, between it's like $1,700, $1,800. So if the buyer is willing to, once they make that offer, it makes the seller have a higher net, and the property doesn't have to appraise any higher because you're taking a cost out of their pocket, not trying to put more money in on the price. Right. So it's a good tool.
The only counties around here that actually the seller has been paying is Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco. So the rest of Florida, the buyer pays pretty much. And by the way, in most states, the buyers pay for title.
So next, what we're doing, emotional letters. Sometimes this isn't even enough. Sometimes you want to go further. Make a video. We had a buyer wanting to get an offer. They were a low down payment, like 3 or 5% down conventional offer. And they made a really strong, solid offer, but there were better offers on the table. They noticed that the seller had a video room, a whole video setup. And they said, wow, he does videos. He probably does YouTube, probably does something like that. Started doing a little research when they went back and looked at the home again. They shot a beautiful video and sent it over to him, talked to him about what they plan to do, tried to connect with him with all of the different features of the home and tell them what they loved and how excited they were. And they got their offer accepted, and it wasn't the best offer because it really resonated with the seller. So write a letter, love letter, or shoot a video and send it over to them. It'll help to make a difference. Go on social media, find the seller on social media if you can, find out their likes and interests and try to play on that and touch on that in the letter or the video. Try to connect with them in that way. Definitely something worth doing.
Mhm.
Good. So that's any other things that you want to mention on the buyer side? Because I think the next ones are going to jump into listing in a multiple offer.
No, that's pretty good. I think we pretty much did that.
Okay. So listing this is a topic of discussion right now. Is listing and selling a home in one day really the best thing? Because we all see it. We see everybody putting it on the market, sold in 2 hours, 20 offers in the first day, sold over asking price. Is that really the best thing? I don't think it is. What do you think?
No, I mean, first of all, let's just talk about our schedules as realtors. And we're out in the field, a house comes on the market, and we have a buyer who's blowing up our phone. We need to get to see it tonight. We go on MLS, we can't get an appointment, and then the next morning it goes under contract. So what in the world was that agent thinking of by knocking out possible other offers that might be better? Now, let's take it. I've got a $500,000 house and someone walks in with $600,000 cash. Okay. I mean, that's a pretty damn good offer, 20% over the value of the house or whatever. And so the seller might go, hey, no appraisal, no, we're done. All right. And that's legitimate. But for the most part, that's not what's coming in and whatever. And I really think you do a disservice to the seller by not maximizing exposure and possible offers.
Well, even before that, even before we get to disservicing the seller, we're creating a for sale by owner market. If we're out there telling every seller that's out there that we sold your home in a day, you could do it too. You don't need me. I didn't do anything except I just a lot of agents aren't even putting professional photography up. More pictures to come if it's not sold. I've seen that in the public remarks. So when they're putting up crappy photos and writing that in there because they're just putting it up and then trying to sell it, they're doing a complete disservice and are showing that homeowners that you don't need us, number one. Number two, we're keeping the inventory low. The more homes that we can get on the market and keep on the market, the more opportunities buyers have. We can bring that inventory up a little bit and give better opportunities to not only the seller, but the buyers and buyers agents. We're helping out the realtor community because you know how it feels when your buyer loses out on a home. You don't want to do that to another buyer's agent. You want to give them an opportunity to get their buyer in, no matter how crappy the offer is going to be. You want to give them that chance. And then go ahead.
I mean, like when I put that listing on yesterday, I had an offer by 6 o'clock. It was a good offer, but the agent's like, I wanted to execute it by 10 p.m. I said, good for you.
That's as a feel to want.
I said, I think I would have 32 other people really upset at me that are already scheduled to see the house. All right. So, you've got I would like to be fair to people, at least to be able to get their buyers in.
Yes.
Don't create a market of a frenzy. There's no need for it. There's nothing special that's going to be for that house if it sells in 3 days or 4 days. There's no prize.
Yeah, and if you're going into the neighborhood saying, I just listed this home, I just sold the home, we sold it in 3 hours, what they're thinking exactly, well, what did you really do?
So that's the next thing. What'd you do for that?
They're questioning the positioning of the home and the price that you put it up at. Could we have done more potentially, even though they're getting 10 grand more? They've heard about their friend making 30. And that's the direction that we're going. So what should you be doing as a listing agent when you're putting it on the market? And the direction, go ahead.
No, first of all, what I always meet the client, and just say, take a breath. It's not going on the market next week. Let's take a look at what we need to do. There's certain things you want to do to sell it quicker. That might be steam cleaning a carpet. It might be replacing a carpet's cheap, but when a buyer walks in and goes, oh, this is new carpet. you know, or, oh my God, I got to replace this before I move in. All right. So there are your two options, Mr. Seller. Which do you want the buyer to think of when they're walking in the home? Because as soon as you start giving them reasons to discount, that doesn't help your cause. So I always meet them. I walk around the house outside with them. I walk through the house. I make notes. I ask them to make notes, and which ones do you think you can do? Depending on the time frame. That this particular client I have now, we met in December and went through the whole house. And I said, this is, and they were still, now this is April, still rushing at the end. I walked up 2 days before and I'm like, you got to paint this front door. I'm sorry.
So once we get through all of that and we get them all prepared, now it's time to go on market.
Yes.
And if we want to avoid the feeding frenzy as much as we can, and the agent sending offers like you just got, I want an answer by 10 p.m. tonight, you'll still get them, but at least we have some grounds to stand on.
Right.
You have the seller write into the listing agreement, or we write into the listing agreement. Century 21 Beggins is directed to open the property for showings for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I will not review any offers until Sunday evening, and I will make a decision on Monday by noon.
Right.
And that allows us to say, okay, we're going to put the property on the market Monday. The seller is unable to make any showings. Somewhat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we get it on the market. The seller is unable to have any showings until Friday. So Friday, we open it up for showings. We do an open house all weekend, and we tell everybody highest and best offers will be reviewed by 5 p.m. on Sunday. Please have them submitted by 5 p.m. We will review them Sunday evening. We will make a decision by Monday at noon, and all parties will be notified. And if you do that, you're positioning the home on the market. We have at least Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to be able to market the home and get the best opportunities.
Right.
And what we're seeing, real quick story, I told this before, my cousin listed her home. She listed it on Wednesday. We listed it $415,000, $415,000. Immediately offers 415 to 425 escalating, 415 to 435 escalating. That was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Offers were 415 to 430, 435. That's what they were at. Sunday by 5 p.m., we had 3 offers that were all 435, 445 escalating to 455, 465, and 475. So tell me that we did not put more money in the seller's pocket because of the way we strategically marketed and positioned that home. If she would have accepted the first few offers in the first 5 hours, first 24 hours, first 48 hours, she would have made 20 grand more than the list price. That's a good day. But if she listens to us and hires a professional that does what we do, we were going to put $50,000 to $60,000 more in her pocket. We doubled what somebody else was going to.
Plus, we knew what to do about appraisal contingencies and stuff like that that a lot of other agents don't. I mean, I know that agent who sent me an offer with $1,000 deposit doesn't know anything about appraisal contingency. So, there is, educating yourself and understanding the market is really our job. That's our job. That's what they're paying us for.
Yep. So don't be afraid to ask for these things. Do not be afraid to go back to a buyer. So something I'm addressing with some of our listing agents is, as Sunday comes around, should I be going back to every other offer? Even though it says in Realtor Remarks how the process is going to go, even though it says in showing instructions how the process is going to go, I would be going back to every agent saying, thank you so much for your offer. We will be reviewing offers this evening. Is this going to be your buyer's highest and best offer? Even if they know it, I'm just going to put it out there and ask them. Create a little bit more of a frenzy, get some more buzz going on the property, get them thinking, wow, they're asking me, maybe my offer isn't the best. Maybe we need to come up a little bit. Maybe we need to change it. Is your buyer willing to waive their appraisal contingency or pay any more than the appraisal contingency? Ask the questions. Ask them, what's the worst answer going to be? No, you're going to have an offer that will. It's okay. Ask the questions. It's happening all over the place. So ask the buyer's agent, is your buyer willing to do these things to get this offer? No, they're not. Okay, sounds good. I'll present what I have.
I mean, a little bit of our job is sales, right? I mean, setting that expectation, but also it's the marketing. It's they can't have what's available, right? Like, I mean, there's there's somebody needs to have, they want it, and how much are they willing to pay for it? And no one always goes in with their best offer. When they, even when I'm doing an offer with an escalation clause and we sit and we're talking with a buyer about it, I tell them, this is where you make a decision on what you want to, the most you want to pay. And that at that point, you don't want it anymore. It's not of value to you.
Yep.
So therefore, it's not a big emotional thing. You put your best foot forward and you didn't get it.
Yep.
So
just remember, it's okay to ask these things because you have the leverage as the seller and the listing agent.
Right.
And all the buyers are thinking all of those things on the other side, like Joe was stating. And he who has the gold makes the rules. And your sellers right now have the gold. So do not be afraid to leverage that. Do not be afraid to step the game up a little bit and ask those questions. What's the worst they're going to say? No.
And by the way, if you have an offer that's really good and doesn't quite meet your seller's term, pick up the phone and say, hey, are your buyers willing to live with this date for a closing date?
Yep, absolutely. Just because they submit an offer.
You punted that ball back to the buyers, right? Here's the ball. Now, if you can catch it and throw it back, or you can drop it. Which one do you want to do?
Or replying to every agent saying, thank you so much for your offer. And if you did not have the conversation with them, just so you're aware, the perfect closing date for the seller is, the perfect terms for the seller is, the seller's really looking for someone to do this. The seller really would like someone that's going to do this. If your buyer can submit an offer like that, it will put them in a better position. Ask, you have the gold, leverage it, make sure that you're getting exactly what the seller wants, because that's what they hired us to do. And you're a single agent for them. And then talking about pricing, run it up the flagpole and see who salutes. The only issue that I have with this is make sure you have a proper pricing analysis that shows where the price should be. Mm-hmm. This is what the average market showing what has sold. This is where your price should be. Now, most other homes, it looks like in the last 30 days have sold higher than that each time, but this is where you should be. We'll probably get multiple offers. We'll probably this, but this is where you should be. It's almost to the point where would you like to list it? We can list it wherever you would like, but as long as you understand this is where your price should be. And if they don't salute at this price, you need to be prepared to make the adjustments.
There's this thing where you can say to your seller, here's the range. If you put it here, you're going to have a lot more people looking at it. If you put it, the higher you go in price, the less people that are able to do it. It's a pyramid, right? So the top of the pyramid is smaller than the bottom of the pyramid. So you got to know where you are in the market on that pyramid. If you're at 340,000, that's a different spot than 580. All right. So you got to also understand, where you are in that pyramid.
Yeah. So something to consider I hear a lot of people saying, why would I do a certified pre-loved home? Because we're getting so many offers. The buyers are waiving inspections. And I get that to an extent, but also what happens when you put a home on the market that's been inspected, that's been disclosed of everything. Everything's been addressed, fixed, or disclosed. You're showing your buyer that you have the absolute best product on the market. It's already ready to go. If you're going to pay 20 to 50,000 more for a home, this is the one to do it on. It's getting the buyer more confident to waive inspections, getting the buyer more confident to pay more than the appraised value, to waive appraisal contingencies. This simple tool, paying $500 to $700 for an inspection, is going to set you apart and give the buyer more confidence to push that price up. If they're willing to pay more for something that's going to be a gem, a flawless diamond, than the one that has some flaws in it and they're not really sure.
A few years ago, I had a buyer looking in the Temple Terrace area, and we found a house that was beautiful. It had the people bought it 2 years before, and they were moving and needed to sell it. We got it. It was some negotiating back and forth, and we got about $10,000 off the asking price. We went and did our inspection. The electric panel was recalled. So they had to replace the electric panel. And the sellers are like, well, we had an inspection and they didn't call that. not only did they have to replace the electric panel, but they had other work electrical to do in order to connect it to the new panel. It ended up costing them $4,000. I much rather know that before I list the house, because then I can incorporate that into my price, than get surprised because I negotiated an offer as a seller and know what my net is. Now my net is $4,000 less than what I thought, and I'm not a happy camper. So
let's see, we got a few minutes left, so I'm going to jump into these spreadsheets so we can make sure we hit these. So these are some of the tools that you can use. So we have a multiple offer worksheet. This is what I would recommend in a situation where you've got 30 to 50 offers. We have this multiple offer Excel sheet. All you're going to do, because it's such a pain to carry around all of these contracts, write them down somewhere. I've got fumbling through all of these different documents. List every single offer that you get. Number one, this is going to show that this is where every offer is. This form was presented to the seller and we went down and highlighted and checked off every single one that stood out, what makes sense to them, what doesn't. And then once you have your top 5 or 6 offers that are going to be up for consideration, then you come over here to a multiple offer cost estimator and you have got your 6 best offers between 500 and 400, whatever the numbers are going to be. It works out the cost for you, all the costs the same way our cost estimator that they showed you yesterday does, but now it's for multiple offers. You can change the price up top and then you can compare the terms of those down here at the bottom. So you've got all of the price, all of the terms of the top 6 offers, top 6 offers on this one sheet for you to go through and say, this is how much you're going to make. These are the absolute best offers that were there as we discussed, because we reviewed all of them and checked and highlighted each one. This is going to be the best possible offer for you based on what we've discussed. And now they can see exactly what they're going to make from having those highest and best offers that were presented.
Right. I developed that spreadsheet, about 4 or 5 years ago when I had 10 offers on a house. And I'm sitting there with 10 offers. And how do you write? So I just made this spreadsheet up and I'm sharing with everybody because in this market, Jessica had 52 offers and she used this spreadsheet. She called me on the phone, was like, thank you, because you can sort this it's an Excel spreadsheet. So you can sort it any way you want. And then that way you can very quickly see what your top 5 or 6 offers are.
Yeah, and this is basically every blank in the contract is going to be filled in here. So you don't have to print out a 12-page contract and carry 52 of them with you. You bring this with you and you have them digital. Then when you have the best ones, you put this together here. Jimmy and I put this together so we can compare multiple offers and you go through and it gives you the best offer. Here's the net for each one. And it puts it all together. Right. So the other things we've basically talked about, positioning the property on the market.
Yeah, a question, Chris, where are they?
We can share them out. So right now I know that I know the multiple offer one is in Google Drive. I'll share it to the team and I'll put the Excel one in there and I'll share that to the team as well. So it's accessible. If you download or take anything from Google Drive, just make a copy of it because the original one is what's going to be shared. We'll make sure that there's no editing rights on it, but we're running down to the end. I'm just going to peruse over this, make sure that there's nothing else, because we've hit both sides from the seller and the buyer side through this. Just understanding price isn't the only blank. Right now, price, you can offer me, for a 350 listing, you can offer me 380. But if you're not willing to waive an appraisal and somebody offering 370 that might be the better offer. So just consider that a price is not the only blank on the contract.
And sometimes, people will call you and go, but I offered you 380 on the 300, but it's only one term of the contract. So, there's a lot of other terms. You're right.
Well, we also did mention last class, is a backup offer the best thing for a seller right now? And in my opinion, I don't think it is, because if your buyer's if you're going to accept an as-is contract or a residential contract and you have a loan approval time frame and the buyer cancels 3 weeks later, 30 days later, more than likely that home is worth more 3 weeks or 30 days later than it was at the time you received all of those offers.
So when I pulled the reports for, March or February into March, our average home price went from 305 to 335. All right. So that's a 1%, that's a 1% jump. You really, basically last year prices went up 14% in Hillsborough. So in that case, that's more than 1% a month. So you're right, Chris. It doesn't make sense to take a backup offer. And
As a buyer,
and a seller doesn't have to take a backup offer.
no. And as a buyer's agent, you want your buyer to have a backup offer,
Right.
because you can hedge against appreciation if you can
That's
get
right.
it under contract now. And if the current buyer cancels, you slide in first position 30 days later.
Right.
So you're hedging against those bets, and it's putting your buyer in a better position. So right now for a seller, repair limits is probably a better contract to accept. If you're going to make 20 grand more on a home, 10,000 more on a home, 40,000 more on a home, is it really that big of a deal if you commit to doing $1,000 in repairs? If it means that buyer cannot cancel in their sole discretion for absolutely no reason. With the as-is contract, the buyer can cancel in their sole discretion. The most important verbiage there, in their sole discretion. They don't even have to do an inspection. They can write 10 offers on homes, get all 10 of them accepted, pick their favorite, and cancel on it on the last day of inspections. So if your seller does not want to be put in that position, accept a contract with repair limits. That's 10, 20, 30 grand more than the list price. Do $1,000 in repairs. Now your seller has the option. If I want to keep this buyer, I can agree to do all of the repairs and force them to buy the home if all of those repairs make sense. Or you can go back on market. It gives the seller the power, so they're not just left hanging when a buyer decides they're going to cancel.
Yeah, I mean, the as-is contract is really a unilateral contract for the first whatever days of your due diligence, right? But the regular FAR bar is a bilateral contract. Correct. So it doesn't give either party more power than the other in the contract. And you're going to have to explain that. I mean, on my new listing, I have in Realtor Remarks, do not submit on as-is contract, submit on regular FAR bar contract. All right. Because I don't want my sellers who have to move because they're transferring. I don't want a contract 10 days from now to cancel. Right. I want to hold the buyer in it. If you want it, cough up, because we're going to put it under contract.